Welcome to the WIDA Screener for Kindergarten State-Specific Guidance webinar. The content provided in this recorded webinar is designed to assist public school units in understanding how to prepare for implementing this screener for the 2022-2023 school year. I'm Wendy Wooten, and I'm a North Carolina Department of Public Instruction Testing, Policy, and Operations Consultant. I work in the Office of Accountability and Testing, and one area of support I provide to public school unit staff is guidance related to testing policy for both the WIDA screeners and the Access for ELS assessments. I'm joined by one of my ESL colleagues, Susan Walls.
Thank you, Wendy. My name is Susan Waltz. I work with the ESL Title III team. My work at the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction focuses primarily on EL identification, EL data, PowerSchool, and federal reporting. I am always happy to collaborate with Wendy to meet the needs of our stakeholders across the state.
Thank you, Susan, and many thanks to you all for joining us and taking time to prepare for our state's transition from the W-APT to the WIDA screener for kindergarten. We appreciate your efforts in this process through participation, completing test administrator training, and planning the next steps locally to ensure processes and procedures are in place for successful administrations. Today's webinar will address the following topics to assist you in implementing the WIDA screener for kindergarten. As you can see, these are going to include the EL identification, including the home language survey process, our North Carolina screening policy, test administrator training, and what's involved in test administrator certification, the materials that are used for this screener, how to order these materials, how to maintain security, how to prepare for the administrations, what's involved with scoring, our North Carolina identification criteria, a few reminders about accessibility and accommodations, and then to close out, a few reminders from the webinar today.
We wanted to just do a quick reminder for everyone about the EL identification process. The identification of a student for English Language Development Services begins with the Home Language Survey. The Home Language Survey is completed during the enrollment process in each public school unit. For your convenience, we have linked the Home Language Survey process for you to review. If you are not aware of what the Home Language Survey process is in your school, charter, or district, we encourage you to reach out to your ESL specialists to find out. It is a critical first step to correctly identifying English learners. Once it's clear which students need to be screened for services, it is important to adhere to the North Carolina screening policy. Per the North Carolina State Board of Education Policy Test 11, to be identified as an English learner, students must be assessed using one of the state-approved screeners within 30 days of initial enrollment. Effective July 1st, the WIDA screener for kindergarten will be the required screening tool used to identify students in kindergarten and first grade first semester. For students with early July start dates, such as sites with year-round or modified calendars, students may be screened through June 30th with the W-APT if enrollment is within 30 days. NCDPI will honor these administrations of the W-APT for those schools who screen students within the 30-day enrollment. After July 1st, all kindergarten students who are screened for EL identification must be administered the WIDA screener for kindergarten within 30 days of enrollment. After June 30th, the WAPT training, content, and administration materials will no longer be available through the WIDA Secure portal, as WIDA is retiring the screener. The retirement of the WAPT screener is a collaborative effort between EL and testing staff. Please work together to collect and provide any WAPT materials to your district or charter test coordinator. All WAPT materials should be securely destroyed. District test coordinators will provide directives to school test coordinators on the process for secure destruction of these materials. Charter school test coordinators will box and ship any WAPT materials to the Technical Outreach for Public Schools, or TOPS, within the first 3 weeks of the school year for secure destruction.
So now we're going to take a look at the WIDA Screener for Kindergarten training course. In order to access the WIDA Screener for Kindergarten training course, individuals must have a WIDA Secure Portal account. As you can see in the image below, the course is divided into links for details, resources, and content. It usually takes about 3 hours for all of the content and quizzes to be completed. This course has examples of all materials necessary for administration linked, as well as resources that are helpful for scoring. The Test Administration Manual, which is abbreviated TAM, is an extremely helpful resource that is linked within the training course. As with all WIDA publications, this manual can be opened as a PDF and searched using the Control F feature to locate answers to specific questions. Many test administrators and support staff find it beneficial to download this resource to a device for quick and easy access. We ask that you utilize the TAM by searching for answers to questions that you may have after the completion of the online training course. Please don't rely on your test coordinator, your EL coordinator, or regional accountability coordinators to answer administration-specific questions prior to searching through the TAM for an answer. If an answer to a question cannot be located in the TAM, then move this question to your ESL coordinator or your test coordinator. Next, we're going to take a look at what's required to be certified to administer this screener. For a test administrator to be certified to administer the WIDA screener for kindergarten, certification must be completed every 2 years. This includes completing the training course and taking both the oral language and literacy quizzes and scoring at least 80%. This certification process ensures test administrators are prepared to administer and score the full screener, which includes listening, speaking, reading, and writing. A current certification must be provided to local leadership prior to administering the screener. With each public school unit, your leadership will specify who will collect the certification documentation for WIDA screener for kindergarten. In this next section, we're going to dive into the materials that are necessary for administering this WIDA screener for kindergarten. There are 4 components that will be included in this screener, reusable kits. All 4 elements of this kit are necessary materials when administering the screener. These materials include the storybook titled New Friends, cards which are used for response, a test administrator manual, and a test administrator script. Each of these elements in the reusable kit is used for multiple screener administrations and potentially for several years. Public school units should order the smallest number of kits necessary to screen kindergartners. If a school or screening site only has 1 certified staff member screening incoming kindergarten students, you should only need 1 screener kit for this site. These reusable kits will remain available in the ordering system throughout the year. However, with materials that are continually reused, items are often worn or damaged, misplaced, and they're sometimes soiled. Beginning in October, each of these reusable kit elements will be available for individual order. This should minimize the need to order whole kits when elements need to be replaced. Consumable materials are also necessary for each WIDA screener for kindergarten administration. And these materials, as you see on the screen, include a student response book and a score sheet. For this reason, the materials are ordered in a 1-to-1 ratio. Like the reusable kits, these elements will be available for order all year in the ordering system. So you're probably wondering, how do I go about ordering materials? So let's take a look at that process. The materials for the screener are available in what's called the North Carolina Education Material Ordering System, NC Education. Test coordinators will collect orders for each public school unit and place them in this system. The training course within the WIDA Secure portal also offers the ability to download and print the materials. Schools are encouraged to utilize this capability only in an emergency situation, and if you do so, to administer the materials in color, which ensures uniformity in the administration and encourages student engagement. The ordering process is highlighted here for you on this slide. Each site within your public school unit where kindergarten students will be screened should determine the number of reusable and consumable materials needed for the 2022-23 school year, keeping in mind that additional material orders are allowed throughout the year. This number of materials is then provided to your task coordinator, and then he or she will place that order in NC Education. In order to provide materials to schools with start dates in early July through early August, orders will need a Regional Accountability Coordinator, or RAC, approval, and these locations will receive their orders first. After mid-August, the orders will ship according to the order that they are received within the ordering system, and they will no longer require RAC approval. Orders will begin shipping from the Technical Outreach for Public Schools, TOPS, from their warehouse in mid-June. One of the many items impacted by the supply chain this year has been paper for our print vendor. We've implemented shipping practices to provide materials to schools who will open first and need these items earlier than other sites across the state. So as we are awaiting the supply of paper for those printed materials to be completed. Each school site will be provided with the necessary materials to screen students for the start of the school year, and we certainly appreciate your patience as we work to get you these materials. As mentioned previously, the ordering system will change in October, allowing for the replacement of those individual items in the reusable kit. And we're hopeful that this will be a cost-saving approach to maintaining those kits for multiple years. The security for the WIDA screener for kindergarten is very different for those of you who have administered the Access for ELS assessment. And so in this next slide, we're going to look at what's called site-based security for these screening materials. The WIDA screener for kindergarten materials could be considered minimally secure, which means that the certified staff member who will be administering the screener can keep the materials in a secure, locked location when they're not in use. This secure, locked location may include a filing cabinet in an office, or for teachers who are traveling, a container that can be locked and then stored in a secure location after use. The materials should not be shared with anyone who is not certified to administer the screener. Each public school unit will determine the best method for ensuring the site-based approach to screener security. We encourage staff members to think carefully about eliminating any hindrances for those test administrators who are determining and scheduling the screening of incoming kindergarten students.
Thank you, Wendy. Now we'll look at some tasks that help you prepare for screener administrations in these next slides. This screener is timed differently from other screeners. When students don't progress, the administration of that domain stops and you move on to the next domain. This is different from online screeners when students must work through the entire set of questions before moving forward. WIDA suggests 30 minutes for listening and speaking, and then 45 minutes for all 4 language domains. As we know, students with more English will take longer to administer this screener than a newcomer. This is a one-on-one administration, and so you want to plan your schedules accordingly. This is a screener that requires practice. Like the Access Kinder test, there are a lot of moving parts to this screener, and moving smoothly through it will make it a more engaging experience for your students. So we encourage you to practice with another test administrator prior to screening a student. Know your stopping rules. Scoring speaking and writing domains will require you to be familiar with the speaking and writing rubric. Use them when you are scoring your students, and if you still aren't sure, please go back to the training sessions and look at their examples. Taking these steps for practice will ensure students are receiving similar scores in other schools, and we can have some assurances that there is uniformity in our administering and scoring practices. Now we'll investigate the scoring of the screener. As you screen a student, record scores directly onto the scoring sheet. The score sheets are detailed and let you know when to continue giving the student more challenging prompts within a section of the screener and when to go on to the next section. These guidelines are carefully calculated and strategically placed to ensure the screening gathers enough information to clearly indicate a student's proficiency level without the need for students to attempt numerous items and tasks that are beyond their current language abilities. Once the student has completed screening, enter scores into the score calculator to generate a score report. We've linked the score calculator on this slide. Be sure to enter student identification details and print or save the student's official results. Please clarify with all test administrators how scores are being recorded in PowerSchool. If you use a third-party vendor, please enter scores into PowerSchool first and then allow them to download into your third-party vendors. Just a few points to review with you on scores and reports. The only way to generate scores is through WIDA's score calculator. This is a change from the W-APT when you would enter scores into PowerSchool to generate a score. Adding scores into the score calculator will create a score report like the ones generated in WIDA AMS for the WIDA Screener Online. Composite scores are generated automatically, but do not need to be added into PowerSchool. Scores must be added into PowerSchool for the student to be counted as an English learner. Share the student's scores and proficiency level information with educators, administrators, and of course, student families. Remember, responses are scored locally. Students are not going to respond in a uniform manner. Some students may pick up and place a card, but other students may just point at it. Both of these actions are acceptable. Use your rubrics for writing and speaking to assist in scoring student responses. Once scores have been entered into PowerSchool, file the student's score sheet in the student's cumulative record. Districts are required to retain and store students' response booklets securely for 6 months. Charter schools will box and ship these materials to TOPS for secure storage and eventual destruction. Now we're going to talk about our identification criteria. Like all other screeners, we administer screeners based on grades and semester. For the WIDA screener for kindergarten, the domain administration remains the same. During the first semester of school, kinders take the listening and speaking domains, and during the second semester, we administer all 4 domains. Students in the first grade will take all 4 domains of the WIDA screener for kindergarten during the first semester of school. Any first graders enrolling in North Carolina during the second semester who do not have any scores from another WIDA state will take all 4 domains of the grade 1 WIDA screener. As you can see on the screen, students taking the WIDA screener for kindergarten who score below a 5.0 in any domain qualify as an English learner. Students who score 5.0 or above in all domains do not qualify for ESL services.
Thanks, Susan. So we're going to look now at some accessibility and accommodation support that are available with this screener. This slide highlights the support that WIDA has provided universally to all students who take this particular screener. These designations don't need to be recorded in a student's plan since they're built straight into the design of the screener itself, and they include extended time, human reader, and large print. For a student who may need accommodations, we'll ask that you work with your school's EC or Section 504 teams to determine what's documented in a student's plan, and then you'll work with your local EC staff regarding whether an accommodation or accommodations are allowed by policy. These individual and case-by-case questions are very good examples of instances where EL and EC teams need to collaborate locally. In these next couple of slides, we're just going to provide a couple of reminders for you as you begin preparing for your administrations. So to recap, we ask that you be sure to practice administering this new screener and read over the test administrator script prior to implementation. It's recommended that each test administrator have a copy of the scoring rubrics available during the screener administrations to help you score those student responses. As you're planning for screener sessions, be sure to pick locations that will minimize distractions and also maximize students' comfort. So we want to thank you for your time and your dedication to our North Carolina English learners and by participating in this webinar to help you prepare for this implementation. And I also want to thank Susan for joining me today in this webinar.
Thank you, Wendy. And thanks to everyone for listening in.